Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be part 10, and we're going to be working on getting our skeleton corpsed. First thing that we're going to be doing, though, is I got to get the hands attached to the staff. Now, I've already gone ahead and done this technique that I'm about to show you. So, the staff had a hole drilled in it. I ran the floral wire through it that I had this hook here attached to. And then I ran some more floral wire around the hand to kind of make this loop to hook onto the hook. So the hook will constantly stay here on the staff, and then when I go to take the skeleton off, I just rip it off this hook, and when I go to set it back on, I just slide it back over the hook. It'll hold the hand perfectly. The next step is going to be getting these fingers glued in place, but before I do that, I want to put this same hook that I had for the lower hand up here for the upper hand. So this is just to show you what that hook looks like that I'm going to be attaching to the staff. So this is the floral wire that I twisted around itself using the drill, and it's connected to this hook. This hook, like I said, will just be attached to the staff, and then I'll make another little loop for the hand, and then that'll just slide over this hook, and it'll always stay right where I need it to be when I go to put it on the skeleton. You can see the hook is just laying here. I've pulled the floral wire through. I'm now just going to take this and wrap this around this hook. So I'm going to take this floral wire, I'm going to wrap it around the hook here, similar to how I did this one. So you can see how I took that excess and just wrapped it around the hook. That'll just keep it from moving, and that's all I'm looking to do. So it's going to be kind of difficult to film that and do that with just one hand, so I'm going to take care of that and come back. Okay, so second hook has been attached. You can see I just wrapped that braided floral wire around it, so that hook will just sit here with this little piece here open. Next thing I'm going to do is I have another little piece of floral wire that I'm going to wrap around the inside part of the hand to make a loop, and then that loop, like I said, will just get attached to that hook. So you can see where I've wrapped the wire around this existing wire that was already in the hand. And then I just made a loop here on the other side. Again, I know this is a little tricky to see. So you can see where the loop hooks onto that little hook, and it'll keep the hand where I need it to be every time. Like I said, the only thing that's left to do at this point is to just get some hot glue into these joints here. What I'm just going to do is I'm going to kind of hold the hand right here, and I'm just going to apply just a little bit of hot glue. I'm not trying to go crazy here. I only need a little bit of glue there to help hold the hand, the finger in place. So all the fingers have now been hot glued. I've only done this first knuckle. I decided I'm going to keep the rest of the hand just as is. If I need to at a later date, I can always put more hot glue on, but I don't want to have this all glued in place because it'll make taking this staff off a lot harder if I do that. So at least by doing this, I still have a little bit of bend and movement in the fingers so I can get it off around the staff. But it also now looks more like it's holding it rather than just kind of hanging there loosely. I got to do the same thing now with this hand. So with our hand all hot glued up here at the first knuckle, I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Hopefully you'll be able to see how easy this works. So you can see that little loop on that hook. All I got to do is just slide that off. And the hand will come right off, and that'll just stay here. And then like I said, next time I go to put it back on, all I have to do is just get the hand, get that little loop. And there it is, just like that. So I'm going to put some glue on the back side of the hand here on these knuckles that I did, just to help make sure that they're secure, they don't go anywhere. I don't think they're going to probably go anywhere as is, but I'm going to still put some on just for the heck of it. I'll probably put a little bit in here as well, but I'm not going to bother filming that. I think you get the idea of putting hot glue on. So, all right, with the hands out of the way, one of the next things I want to be tackling before I get too far in, or before I really start corpsing, is this skull needs to look a little more realistic. So the skull was made to sit flat, but because it's going to be on the skeleton, I don't want that flat part being there. So I'm going to use the Dremel to kind of make it look like it's an actual skull and take off some of this excess foam, clean out from behind the jaw here, and just try and make it look like it's a real skull rather than, you know, this sawed off flat foam skull. So unknown to me, while I was doing this, my camera stopped recording. But I was using the Dremel to just kind of remove some of this foam. I brought in another skull here just for reference, just to kind of help me give, you know, direction as to how this needs to be cleared out. It doesn't look like a regular flat. It doesn't have that flat look anymore. I might take a smaller Dremel bit just to kind of help clear this out a little bit, just to help give it a little more depth on either side. But as far as the underside of the skull goes, this is good enough. Like I said, the point was to get rid of that flat surface and help it look more like a skull. Once we corpse this and at nighttime and the way this is going to be set up on the porch, you're really not going to see that kind of detail anyways. I'm just being, I don't know, I guess overly paranoid on it. But yeah, this is pretty much done. Like I said, I'm going to find a smaller Dremel bit just so I can clean that up, but I'm not going to bother filming that. But just wanted to show you, this is what I was trying to show you actually before my camera shut off. But just use your Dremel. It's definitely helpful to have a shop vac going. I've held this one on with a clamp, just so that way you have something that can help collect this dust, because this foam stuff gets everywhere. Another thing I'm going to mention, if you are doing this, highly recommend wearing some sort of a respirator. That's not a really great respirator, but I wouldn't want to breathe in any of this foam dust. All right, so we've got our patient here on the slab. Gonna get ready to start corpsing him. Things that I've done off camera, I've attached the head. I just used some hot glue around the base of the skull to attach that. So at some point I can take this off later on when I figure out what I'm going to do to make the head move, but I decided to just heck with it for now. We're just going to leave it solid. So plan right now, I don't know if you can tell by looking at it, but our skeleton spine is curving a little bit this way. So I'm going to do a little chiropractic work on it, straighten out its spine just a little bit. Things that we're going to be using: spider webs, pantyhose, RD407 mask latex. Now I bought this off of Amazon. This is the gallon size. I love this stuff. I use this for all of my corpses. It holds up pretty well. I mean, once you have your stuff outside, the elements are going to take its toll on it. So just be mindful of it. But I've had excellent success doing my corpses using this technique. So anyways, enough of me talking. Let's get to me filming this. Like I said, this is just going to be a time lapse, but you're going to be able to see me After coating this with the dark walnut, the color is too dark for my liking. It's even though I wiped it off relatively quick, it's just too dark for me. Now this has dried overnight completely, but the one thing that I like to use wood stain, or one of the reasons why I like to use wood stain for my corpsing is, number one, the way that it just kind of gets in all the little cracks and crevices and gives you a lot of great depth. But two is if you put it on too heavy, it's forgiving in the sense that you could just reapply additional wood stain to already dried stain. I mean, it's probably not completely thoroughly dry, but it's dry enough to where I can touch it and it won't get on my hands. But you can apply stain back onto stain that you've already applied and had it dry, like what you see here, and it'll actually remove the stain. So I'm going to be doing that to lighten up the entire skeleton. It's just too dark. It's still a little dark, if I'm being honest. I'm going to let it go for right now. I'm just going to live with it. But I definitely am going to be a little more mindful next time I do this. I've been also wanting to try messing around with latex paint, like making your own latex paint to paint over latex, like for masks and stuff like that. I've never tried that. Something I'll experiment with in the future. But for right now, wood stain has always been my go-to. And I'm still happy with the results. Things that I'm going to start to do now, the final touches, I'm going to come in with like my airbrush and spots where you can see like the foam there behind the jaw or between the teeth there, or even around the teeth. I want to just try and, black those areas out. This part of the rib cage, I did this off camera just because I was experimenting with paint colors. This part of the rib cage is not like bone color like you see here. It's like a plastic color, so it's very, very dark. So because of that, you can't even really see the bones. So I went over with some acrylic paint just to see if I could help, bring out those bones. They have a little bit of separation. It's not terrible, but I'm also not happy with how it looks completely just yet. So I'm going to bust the airbrush out. I'm going to do some fine details, finishing touches on it, but this thing is basically ready to go. The legs I'm not even going to worry about. It's mostly the torso that I'm going to be focusing on here. But again, I'm just going to try and do a time lapse so you can just watch me. So I know I just got done saying how dark it was. Why am I going in with black? The reason why I went with black is because I want to try and help highlight some of these other areas that I couldn't get as light as I wanted to. So I went in and put in a little bit of extra black just to kind of help highlight those a little bit. Didn't really do much of a difference, if I'm being honest. It probably could have been skipped altogether. But while this is drying, I'm going to go get the rocks up here on the table because I want to add, since I have black out, I want to add a little black around the rocks. This done, the next thing I'm going to get up here is the cauldron because I want to do something similar. One thing I'm going to do before I get too far here, because I keep forgetting to do it, I need to drill a hole through the cauldron, through the base to run all the cords for the motor, for the light, For any other additional stuff that I might want to try and use, I need to have some sort of way to run the cords underneath the decoration to the base. So that's what I'm going to do next. I have this hole saw drill. I'm just going to drill a hole into the cauldron. Like I said, it's going to go through the cauldron, through the wood, so that way I can run all the wires that I'm going to use to because it's finally done. I'd like to just thank everybody for following along with this series and sticking it out through all these tutorials. This is being my first time. I'm going to try and see if I can be a little more efficient. If you have any suggestions for future tutorials, I don't know if folks like having them broken out over multiple videos or prefer just one really long video, but let me know in the comments, just because it'll help me help. Even though I'm calling this done. First things first, you can see the screw, or the bolts that are, or nuts I should say, that are holding the legs onto the pelvis. Neither one of those are painted, so I want to get those disguised, either colored black or, try and do some corpsing over them just so that way I can hide them a little bit better. Another thing I'd like to try and mess around with is getting this bar a little bit closer to the hand. This works. It absolutely works, but I just don't like how high it's sticking up. It feels very, very obvious. When everything else is so hidden, that just sticks out to me like a sore thumb. So it's something I'm going to try and play around with, but I want to be very careful because I don't want to ruin the skeleton either. But I just feel like if that was a little bit lower, closer to the hand, it would look a lot better, which means I would also have to re-drill where this piece here, this little eye bolt is, but again, things that I'm going to worry about after the fact. Something else that'll have to take place is the motor, I notice, is not level, and that's part of the reason why I'm having some problems with the motor not wanting to start initially when I first power it on. I think it's because there's just too much of a load on one end that it's hard for the motor to get going. So I'm going to be adjusting that, and it's just going to be a matter of trying to level it as best as I can and tightening the U-bolts that's attach the motor to the board, and just trying to keep that as level as I possibly can. But again, something I'm going to be doing off camera, but if anybody else is going to try and build one of these, I'd say make sure you have that nice and level when you put that on or when you install your motor. That I would like to try and do with this build is I've found that, so I've drilled a hole to run the wires through the Cauldron and out through the base and out through the back of the base. I need to get that fine-tuned and situated so that way it's nice and neat. But one thing I have found is that I didn't think that one through when I was doing this, because it's difficult to move this platform without having the Cauldron attached to hold the two pieces together. So what I'd like to do is maybe put on some brackets on either end, so that way I could at least screw the brackets together to hold the two pieces together, which would make it a lot easier for lifting this thing up and running the cords through. Yeah, like I said, I just wish I would have spent a little more time thinking about how I was going to do that than just having it being an afterthought at the very end here. Just because it's not impossible to do, but there's probably a lot easier ways that I could have did it. But that's the only other real thing I'd like to try and maybe tinker around with on this. All right, enough of me yammering. I'm gonna get the lights killed off here, get it set up looking pretty spooky, and we'll get some shots at night. Unfortunately, it'll be in the garage, but you'll get the idea.